The halls of the Hope Circle Foundation buzzed softly with laughter and quiet hope. Elara walked through the counseling room, her eyes gentle as she greeted couples seated close together, some anxious, some smiling through tears. Months ago, surrogacy had been a word filled with judgment and misunderstanding. But now, through compassion and truth, people were learning to see it differently, as an act of love, not shame. And Elara had become the heart behind that change. She paused by her desk, where a photo of the twins rested in a golden frame. Touching it softly, she whispered, This is what healing looks like."
The morning sun spilled through the wide windows of the Harrington mansion, painting the marble floors with soft gold. Laughter drifted from the nursery, the sound of the twins chasing each other around their colorful playmats. For the first time in a long while, the house felt alive. Elara stood by the doorway, smiling as she watched little Lila try to place a teddy bear on her brother's head. Her laughter was pure music, a sound that filled the space once ruled by silence. Behind her, Caleb's voice was calm but warm. "You've brought peace back into this house, Elara. I don't think I can ever thank you enough." Elara turned, meeting his gaze with her gentle smile. "It wasn't just me, Mr. Harrington. The babies healed us all in their own way." He chuckled softly. "You still call me that?" "It feels respectful," she teased lightly, though her tone carried warmth. "Besides, you'll always be the man who taught me that broken things can shine again." Caleb's reply was interrupted by the sound of Stella's heels clicking across the marble. She entered the room, her appearance simple but elegant, a woman learning to exist without performance. The twins squealed and rushed to her, and she dropped gracefully to her knees, hugging them tightly. "Good morning, my loves," she whispered, kissing their hair. The affection came easily now, though a few months ago such tenderness had been foreign to her. Elara watched quietly, her chest swelling with something that felt like peace. Stella caught her gaze and smiled, a genuine, humble smile. "They slept through the night again. I think they're finally happy." "They are," she replied softly. "They just needed love to feel safe." Later that day, the three adults sat together on the veranda overlooking the garden. The scent of blooming roses filled the air. Caleb was reviewing some foundation papers, Stella was scrolling through event invitations, and Elara was jotting notes for an upcoming awareness campaign. It was peaceful, almost like a family, though their connection was far deeper than any label could define. The Hope Circle Foundation is growing faster than we imagined. We've already received over 50 counseling requests from couples across the state. "That's wonderful," Elara said, her eyes lighting up. "It means people are finally opening up about surrogacy, not as shame, but as hope." Stella nodded thoughtfully. "Hope. That's the word I've been thinking about lately. For a long time, I thought I'd lost mine, but seeing how far we've come, it makes me want to do something more, something beyond just being a face for the foundation." Caleb looked curiously at her. "What do you have in mind?" "I'm not sure yet, but I want to find a way to tell our story, not the glamorized version, but the real one. Maybe it'll help other women like me see that motherhood isn't about perfection. It's about presence." Elara's heart warmed at the sincerity in Stella's voice. "That's a beautiful idea, and brave." The afternoon stretched softly, filled with easy conversation and the twins' laughter echoing from the garden. For a while, everything felt still, as if life had finally taken a deep breath after too much storm. But that night, as Elara lay in her small room in the East Wing, her heart stirred restlessly. She had everything she once prayed for: peace, purpose, belonging, yet something inside whispered of unfinished dreams. Her mother's words echoed faintly. Sometimes God doesn't end stories, He rewrites them. Elara turned on her side, gazing out the window where the moonlight poured over the garden. A thought flickered quietly. Maybe God was rewriting hers again. The next morning, while sorting files at the foundation office, she came across a brochure for an upcoming surrogacy awareness conference. It was being hosted in another city, a chance to share her journey with professionals and families who needed real stories, not statistics. Elara traced the edge of the flyer with her fingers. For the first time, she imagined standing before a crowd, telling her truth, not as a victim, not as someone who once lost, but as someone who found meaning through pain. That night, she brought it up to Caleb and Stella over dinner. They invited the foundation to send a representative. I thought it might be a good chance to reach more people, to share our message. Stella's eyes brightened. I think that's a wonderful idea, Elara. You've lived it more deeply than any of us. Caleb nodded in agreement. If you're comfortable sharing, I'll make sure you have everything you need for the trip. Elara smiled gratefully. Thank you. I just want people to see that surrogacy isn't brokenness. It's love in another form. As she spoke, Stella reached across the table, touching her hand. And if anyone can make them see that, it's you. For the first time in a long while, her heart steadied. The storm that once broke her had turned into calm waters, guiding her towards a new horizon. And somewhere deep down, she knew this was only the beginning of another story.
The city light shimmered against the glass walls of the hotel lobby as Elara stepped in, her small suitcase rolling quietly behind her. The Surrogacy Awareness Conference was scheduled to begin the next morning, and she had arrived a day early to prepare. It was her first time away from the twins since their birth. She had hugged them so tightly before leaving that little Leela had complained, "Mommy, too tight," while Leo had giggled and pressed his soft cheek against hers. Caleb had assured her everything would be fine. "Go make the world a little softer, Elara," he had said before she left. "We'll be waiting for you." Now, standing in the quiet lobby, she felt both nervous and alive, a blend of emotions that came whenever she was about to do something that mattered. Up in her hotel room, she unpacked carefully, setting her notes on the bedside table. She caught her reflection in the mirror, not the timid girl who once lived from one meal to the next, but a woman with calm strength in her eyes. Still, doubt crept in. Would people listen? Would they understand the heart behind her story? The next morning, the conference hall buzzed with voices, professionals, families, nurses, advocates. Banners hung from the ceiling reading, "Building Bridges of Hope Through Surrogacy." Elara clutched her folder as the coordinator led her to her seat on the panel. There were 5 other speakers, a fertility doctor, a legal advisor, 2 parents, and a former surrogate from another state. When it was her turn to speak, her palms trembled slightly. But as she looked out at the crowd, faces filled with curiosity, skepticism, and pain, her fear began to melt. "Good morning," she began softly. "My name is Elara." She paused, her voice steadying. "A few years ago, I was just a woman trying to survive. I never imagined my journey would teach me that love isn't about possession. It's about giving life, even when the world misunderstands your reasons." She spoke from her heart about the emotional battles, the sleepless nights, and the beauty that came after surrender. She told them about Stella's transformation, about Caleb's kindness, and about how the twins became symbols of redemption for all of them. By the time she finished, the hall was silent, not from disinterest, but from depth. Then came applause, slow at first, then strong and rising until it filled the room. Tears pooled in Elara's eyes. For the first time, she didn't feel like a story told by others. She was the one telling it. After the session, people came to her. Mothers, medical workers, even skeptics. A young woman approached her quietly, clutching a brochure. "I've been considering surrogacy, but I'm scared. What if it breaks me?" Elara took her hand gently. "It won't break you if it's done with love. Pain might come, yes, but so will purpose. You'll understand that some gifts are meant to be shared." The woman nodded, tears glistening. "Thank you. I needed that." That evening, Elara was invited to a dinner event organized for guest speakers. There she met Nathan Hale, a documentary filmmaker who had attended her session earlier. He was in his mid-30s, calm-eyed, with a quiet kind of charisma that didn't need to demand attention. "You spoke beautifully today," he said as they shook hands. "You made people feel instead of just understand." Elara smiled shyly. "Thank you. I just told the truth." Nathan leaned back, curious. "Have you ever considered turning your story into something visual? Maybe a documentary? There are thousands who need to hear this." The idea caught her off guard. "A documentary?" "Yes," he said. "You, the family, the journey. It's raw, emotional, real. People need to see that surrogacy isn't a transaction, it's transformation. I'd like to work with you, if you're open to it." Elara's heart skipped. She had never imagined something like that. I'll have to talk to Mr. and Mrs. Harrington. It's not just my story." "Of course," Nathan replied with an easy smile. "But think about it. The world listens differently when truth has a face." That night, she stood on her balcony, looking down at the glowing city. The wind brushed her hair as she thought of the twins' laughter, Stella's kind smile, Caleb's quiet strength. A new kind of calling was unfolding, not just to heal, but to help others find healing too. Maybe this was what her mother meant when she said, "God rewrites stories." This wasn't the end of Elara's. It was the start of something that could touch countless lives.
The next afternoon, Elara's cab rolled past the familiar gates of the Harrington mansion. The place felt different now, warmer, more like a home than a house. Laughter spilled faintly from the garden where the twins played with their nanny. Caleb stepped out to meet her, hands tucked casually in his pockets, a soft smile on his face. "Welcome back, Miss Inspirational Speaker," he teased lightly. Elara laughed. "I was nervous the entire time, but it went better than I imagined." "I watched the stream," he said. "You were incredible. Even Stella teared up, and that woman doesn't cry easily." She smiled at that. "Speaking of Stella, is she home?" "In the nursery," he said, then noticed her expression. "You have something to tell us, don't you?" Elara nodded. "Yes, it's big." Inside, Stella was on the floor, surrounded by crayons and coloring books, the twins giggling beside her. The moment she saw Elara, she stood and gave her a warm hug. "You did it. The whole world's talking about your session. I didn't do it alone. You both gave me a story to tell." After they sat, she shared everything about Nathan Hale, the filmmaker, and his idea to create a documentary about surrogacy and their journey. She spoke about how he believed it could change perspectives and bring hope to struggling families. When she finished, silence filled the room. Caleb leaned back thoughtfully. "It's an amazing opportunity," he said slowly, "but it's also delicate. Our story involves the twins, and the public can be harsh." "I know," she admitted. "That's why I wanted to ask first. I'd never do it without your blessing." Stella was quiet for a long time, tracing her fingers along the rim of her teacup. Finally, she spoke. "Do you think people will see the beauty in it, not the scandal?" "I think they'll see hope," Elara said softly. because that's what it is now, a story of healing. Caleb met Stella's eyes. There was a silent understanding there, one built over months of rebuilding trust. "Maybe this is our chance to give back," he said gently. "We started the Hope Circle Foundation to help others. This could amplify that mission." Stella sighed, then smiled faintly. "You always know how to talk me into things, Caleb." He grinned. "Only the right ones." Turning to Elara, Stella nodded. "Let's meet him, this Nathan. If we're telling the story, it has to be done with dignity and purpose. I won't let the twins' beginning be turned into gossip." "Of course," Elara agreed, relieved. "He's respectful. I'll arrange a meeting." A week later, Nathan arrived at the Harrington estate. He greeted them all politely, but it was clear from the moment he entered that he wasn't there to sensationalize anything. His tone was calm, his eyes attentive, and he spoke about the project with genuine care. "I don't want to exploit your story," he said firmly. "I want to illuminate it. Surrogacy is often misunderstood, but what you three build here is proof that love can rewrite anything. That's what I want people to see." Caleb folded his arms, studying him. "And what about privacy?" "Your terms, your limits," Nathan promised. "No intrusive scenes. We focus on the message, not the drama." Stella softened a little. "That's reassuring. And the children?" "They'll only appear if you consent. Maybe just in family settings, nothing invasive," Nathan replied. By the end of the meeting, the decision was unanimous. The documentary would happen. But that night, as Elara prepared to leave for her cottage, she lingered in the garden. The stars shimmered above, and Nathan joined her briefly to thank her again. "You're giving a lot of people hope, Elara," he said quietly, "including me." She turned, surprised. "You?" He smiled faintly. "My sister went through something similar. She couldn't carry her own child. I watched her lose herself to guilt and silence. Hearing you speak, it reminded me how love doesn't always come in the form we expect." There was a pause, soft, thoughtful. Then Nathan added, "I think we're going to make something truly special together." Elara smiled, feeling a warmth rise within her chest. "I believe that too." As he left, she watched his figure fade into the night. For the first time in a long while, she felt something stirring. Not love yet, but a kind of connection that whispered of possibility. Somewhere deep down, Elara knew the story wasn't just about surrogacy anymore. It was about second chances, healing, and perhaps new beginnings she hadn't yet dared to imagine. The first day of filming dawned bright and calm. The Harrington mansion, once a place of tension and heartbreak, now buzzed softly with anticipation. Camera crews moved quietly around the house, setting up lights near the garden and the nursery window, the very spot where Elara had once whispered her final goodbye to the twins. Nathan, now dressed casually in a dark jacket and jeans, coordinated with his small crew. He was careful, gentle even, making sure everything stayed respectful. "We capture emotions, not invasions," he reminded them. "This is a story about love, not loss." Inside, Elara sat with Stella and Caleb as microphones were adjusted on their clothing. The twins played in the background, occasionally running into their mother's lap or tugging at Elara's skirt. "They're naturals," Nathan joked, crouching to their level. "You two might steal the whole film." The children giggled, instantly drawn to his warmth. Elara couldn't help smiling as she watched him. He had that rare kindness that wasn't for show. Once everything was set, Nathan gave a small nod to the cameraman. "We'll start with introductions. Just be yourselves." Caleb began, his voice steady. "Our story began in a place of need and hope. We thought we could control everything, the process, the emotions, but life has a way of teaching you humility." Stella continued, her tone softer. I didn't understand the gift we were given through Elara at first. I saw her as part of a transaction, not a person. But she gave us life, literally, and in return, she helped me find mine. Then Nathan turned to Elara. "And you, Elara," he said gently, "how would you describe what this journey has meant to you?" Elara paused. For a moment, all the noise faded. Her gaze went to the twins, then to the sunlight filtering through the nursery window. When she carried them, she began quietly, "I thought I was just helping a couple have a family, but I ended up finding one myself, not by blood, but by love, forgiveness, and grace." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was reverent. Even the camera crew looked moved. After filming wrapped for the day, Nathan approached her outside. The late afternoon sun painted gold streaks across the garden. "That was powerful," he said softly. "You spoke straight from the soul." Elara smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I just told the truth. It's all I have." He studied her for a moment. "The truth looks good on you." She blinked, surprised, but there was no flirtation in his tone, only sincerity. And somehow, that made her chest feel warm. Over the following weeks, the filming continued. They shot moments of daily life, the twins learning to walk, Stella baking with them, and Caleb working with Elara at the foundation office. Every scene carried quiet meaning, showing that love could evolve beyond pain. But with every session, Elara felt something shifting inside her. Nathan wasn't just a filmmaker anymore. He had become someone she looked forward to seeing. His questions made her reflect. His empathy made her open up in ways she hadn't expected. One afternoon, after filming a scene at the daycare center where Elara volunteered, Nathan suggested they take a walk. The sun hung low, spilling soft amber light over the small park nearby. "You know," he said, hands in his pockets, "every time I film you, it feels like I'm not just documenting someone's life, but more like I'm watching strength in motion." Elara laughed lightly. "That sounds poetic for a filmmaker." "Maybe," he admitted, smiling, "but it's true. You've turned pain into purpose. Most people hide from their past. You turned yours into hope for others." Her laughter faded, replaced by a shy smile. "That means a lot, Nathan. More than you know." They walked in silence for a moment, the kind that felt comfortable, like two souls who didn't need to fill the quiet. Then as the wind brushed past them, Nathan looked at her and said, "When this documentary ends, I hope this isn't the end of our story too." Elara's heart skipped. She didn't answer right away, just stared ahead at the fading sun. "Let's finish the story we started first," she whispered, though her eyes said something else, something hopeful. Back at the mansion, Stella watched from the balcony as they returned, walking side by side. There was a calm in her expression, not jealousy, not fear, but something closer to gratitude. Later that night, Stella turned to Caleb as they tucked the twins in. "You see it too, don't you?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, she deserves happiness. Maybe she's finally finding it." Stella nodded. "Then maybe this story really did come full circle."
The documentary's final week of filming had arrived. The mansion, once filled with quiet sorrow, now felt alive again, not with extravagance, but with warmth. Yet amid the laughter and the busy hum of the crew, something deeper stirred between Elara and Nathan, something neither dared to name. Every glance lingered longer. Every conversation held quiet meanings beneath the words. One afternoon, while filming at the Foundation's new counseling center, Nathan's camera lens caught Elara kneeling to comfort a nervous young woman, a wife afraid surrogacy would make her less of a mother. Elara held her hands and said gently, "Motherhood isn't about how life begins, but how love continues." Nathan stopped filming, lowering the camera slowly. For a moment, he just watched her, his heart caught in his throat. There it was again, that light she carried. It wasn't beauty or perfection. It was something deeper, compassion that came from knowing pain too well. When their eyes met, she smiled softly. "Why did you stop recording?" He hesitated, then chuckled lightly. "Because sometimes the story deserves to be felt, not filmed." That evening, after the crew left, Elara sat in the garden alone, surrounded by the faint hum of crickets and the soft glow of the mansion's outdoor lights. She thought of everything, of Stella's kindness, Caleb's forgiveness, and Nathan's steady presence that had begun to feel like something more than friendship. Then she heard footsteps behind her. "Mind if I sit?" Nathan asked, holding 2 cups of tea. "Only if one of those is for me," she teased. He handed her a cup, smiling. "Mint and honey. You mentioned it helps you think." They sat in silence for a while, the night calm around them. The twins' laughter echoed faintly from their room upstairs, a reminder of the life she'd helped build. "You know," Nathan began quietly, "I came here to capture a story about surrogacy, but what I found was faith, forgiveness, people who learned to love past their own pain." Elara turned to him. "That's what life does, doesn't it? It breaks us so we can learn to rebuild, softer, wiser." Nathan's eyes softened, and maybe braver, too. A breeze stirred her hair, and for a second the world felt still. Then he said, barely above a whisper, "Elara, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped. "Nathan." But before he could finish, the mansion doors opened, and Stella's voice carried across the garden. "Elara, you need to see this." Startled, they both stood. Inside, the house buzzed with panic. Caleb was on the phone, pacing, his voice tight. The twins' nanny stood by the stairs, pale and shaking. "What happened?" Elara asked, rushing forward. "It's Liam. He fell. He hit his head while playing near the stairs. He's breathing, but—" Elara didn't wait to hear the rest. She ran to the car, grabbing the baby's blanket as she went. Nathan followed, helping her into the passenger seat, while Stella and Caleb hurried in behind them. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Elara held Liam close, whispering prayers under her breath. Nathan drove faster than he ever had, his jaw tight with focus. At the emergency room, doctors rushed the little boy inside. The family waited, silent, terrified. Elara's hand shook uncontrollably, tears running down her face. Nathan placed his hand over hers. "He's strong, Elara. You'll see." 2 agonizing hours later, a doctor emerged with a calm smile. "He's going to be fine. Just a mild concussion. He'll need rest and observation, but he's safe." The room erupted with relief. Stella broke down, clinging to Caleb. Elara stood frozen, then began to cry, not out of fear anymore, but gratitude. As she wiped her tears, Nathan looked at her quietly. "You prayed like a mother," he said softly. Elara met his gaze, her voice trembling, "Because that's what I am, not by law or title, but in my heart." He smiled faintly, "And that's what makes you unforgettable." In the days that followed, the incident changed everything. Stella became even closer to Elara, realizing that motherhood wasn't about possession, but partnership. She began involving Elara in every decision about the twins, treating her not as help, but as family. As for Nathan and Elara, something had shifted. Their connection was deeper now, bound by emotion, trust, and shared moments of vulnerability. But as filming wrapped, Nathan received a call that threatened to change everything. His studio wanted him back in New York urgently. The documentary was being fast-tracked for release, and they needed him for promotion. That night, he found Elara sitting in the nursery, rocking Liam gently. The glow of the nightlight painted soft shadows across her face. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said quietly. She froze. "Tomorrow?" He nodded. "It's work.
I didn't plan for it to end like this." Her heart sank. "So this is goodbye." He hesitated, then stepped closer. "Not if you don't want it to be." Their eyes met, an unspoken promise hovering between them, the kind of moment where everything could change or end. But before either could speak again, a knock came at the door. Stella, holding 2 mugs of cocoa, smiling warmly. "Thought you two might like something sweet before bed." Elara forced a small smile, hiding the ache in her chest. Nathan took the cup from Stella and whispered to Elara, "Sometimes the hardest part of a story is waiting to see if there's another chapter." She looked down at the twins, sleeping peacefully, and whispered back, "Then let's hope ours isn't finished yet."
Nathan left early the next morning. The sky was pale and quiet, a soft mist hanging over the Harrington estate. Elara stood by the window, her hands wrapped around a mug of untouched tea, watching as his car disappeared down the long, winding driveway. He had hugged her goodbye, gently, almost reluctantly, and whispered, "Keep believing in your story." Then he was gone. For days, life at the mansion settled back into its rhythm, but to Elara, everything felt slower, emptier. The twins brought her joy, Stella's friendship remained warm, and Caleb often thanked her for her devotion to the children. Yet there was a part of her heart that felt suspended in midair, waiting. Nathan had sent one text when he landed in New York. "Made it safely. They loved the film. You'd be proud." She had replied with a smiley face, and nothing more. What could she say? That she missed him already? That every time the twins laughed, she thought of his camera capturing their smiles? No, that wasn't her place. 2 months later, the documentary, The Heart That Carried Hope, premiered online. Within days, it went viral. News outlets picked up the story, not just because it was touching, but because it was real. Viewers wept as they watched 3 strangers turn heartbreak into healing. Messages flooded the Hope Circle Foundation inbox. Couples from around the world reached out for help, guidance, and inspiration. Stella and Caleb worked tirelessly, while Elara managed the counseling schedules, answering messages with heartfelt care. And then, one evening, a video call request appeared on her screen. From Nathan. Her heart leapt. She answered. His face filled the screen, tired but smiling. "Elara." "Nathan," she breathed, her eyes glistening. "You look exhausted." He laughed softly. "You try surviving New York press interviews and late-night edits, but I had to see you. You've been avoiding my calls." "I've been busy," she said, her voice playful but shy. "I know," he said gently. "I saw the Foundation's website. You've built something incredible, Elara. You turned a story into hope." She smiled faintly. "We all did." He hesitated, eyes searching hers through the screen. "I miss you." The words hit her like a wave. Simple, honest. No camera, no script, just truth. She swallowed hard. "Nathan, you're in New York. Your life's there." "And yours is here," he finished. "But maybe they don't have to stay apart forever." Before she could respond, the twins' laughter echoed in the background. "Mama," little Leela called, toddling into the room. Nathan's face softened instantly. "She's gotten bigger," he said quietly. "They both have," Elara smiled, lifting her into her arms. "They still remember you. Liam points at your photo and says, 'Uncle Camera.'" "Then tell him Uncle Camera misses him too." After a pause, he added, "Listen, I'm coming back to town next week. The studio wants to film a short follow-up, but truthfully, that's just an excuse. I want to see you, Elara. No cameras, just us." Elara froze. "Nathan, I don't know if that's a good idea. Things are peaceful here and you're scared," he said softly. "So am I. But maybe that's how you know it's real." Her lips parted, but no words came. She only nodded faintly before the call ended. The following week arrived faster than she expected. The day Nathan returned, the entire Foundation team gathered to celebrate a new grant approval. Stella insisted they host a small dinner, and to Elara's surprise, Nathan walked in midway through, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. For a moment, the room froze. The twins squealed and ran to him, breaking the tension instantly. He knelt, laughing as they clung to his neck. "Well, I guess I've been replaced by toddlers," he said. Elara smiled shyly. "They've missed you." "I missed all of you," he said, his gaze lingering on her. The dinner flowed easily. Laughter, stories, and warm memories. Even Stella and Caleb looked content watching the two reconnect. At one point, Stella leaned toward her husband and whispered, "You see it too, don't you?" Caleb nodded. "Yeah, that kind of bond doesn't fade." Later, after everyone had left, Elara walked Nathan to the garden. The moonlight reflected off the fountain, the same place they'd once shared tea and unspoken feelings. "It's strange," she said softly. "So much has changed, yet this place still feels the same." Nathan smiled. "Maybe that's because some things aren't meant to change." He took a slow breath. "Elara, I've had time to think about the film, the story, and what it all really meant. But somewhere in between editing and interviews, I realized I wasn't finished telling our story." Her heart thudded. "Nathan." He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "You once said life breaks us so we can rebuild softer. I think that's what we are. Rebuild souls who found each other in the cracks." She blinked back tears. "And if life pulls us apart again, then I'll find my way back," he said, smiling faintly. "Every time." For a long moment, they just stood there, the wind rustling softly through the trees, the faint laughter of the twins echoing from inside. Then slowly, Elara leaned into his embrace, and for the first time in a long time, she felt complete, not because of what she'd lost or gained, but because she'd finally found peace in both. 6 months later, the follow-up documentary premiered quietly, titled The Hope That Came Home. In one closing scene, Nathan's voice narrated as Elara and the twins played in the garden, Stella and Caleb smiling nearby. Love doesn't always look the way we imagine it. Sometimes it begins in heartbreak. Sometimes it's rewritten in grace. And sometimes it simply finds its way home.
In the end, love found its way, not through perfection, but through forgiveness, courage, and grace. Elara's kindness, Stella's growth, and Caleb's redemption remind us that healing begins where love refuses to give up. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us love always wins.